Hey everyone, I wanted to show you what I had going on here. So this here is the lx9 pump, which is probably very similar to the 3400 pump and all the other pumps before it. And this pump here is the LZ pump. So just looking at them here, you can kind of see that the LZ pump is much larger dimensionally than the old lx9 pump. So this will probably flow a lot more oil, and obviously so, because with the VVT camshaft you probably need a lot more oil flow, a lot more oil volume than the lx9 cam. So here are the actual gears from the LZ oil pump. So they won't even fit inside the lx9 pump. They're just way bigger. So I don't know. I'm assuming, other than these dowel pins here, if you can remove them, you might be able to actually use an LZ pump in an older style engine to get more oil flow. Now I don't know what the pressures are set up as, but I'm sure this will do way more volume. So just a couple of differences there on those pumps. That's actually probably a better shot. You can kind of see what's going on there. Now over here we have our oil filter housing arrangements. Now you cannot use the old style PF52 AC Delco oil filters on the newer engines. So this fitting here is a different thread and pitch than the old style. So this here is an older style off of the 3400 here, and then the one on the right is the LZ style. So of course on the lx9 blocks you have a threaded fitting here into the block. This threads actually into the block, and then you can screw your oil filter on directly onto the block. So on the LZ, there is no thread. You cannot thread this on. They use the 3 bolts here on the outside to actually bolt this to the engine block. Now, these castings are essentially, they're the same, but they're different. So if you look here, you can kind of see that the part numbers are the same, but they're in a different location, essentially. So this one's upside down, and this one's right side up the way we're looking at it. So it's the same casting. Well, it's a different casting, but it's the same part number. So if you wanted to use an older style, this part number here, what is that, 125788891. If you wanted to use this was actually, I believe, this one here, was actually off of a 3400 engine that had this piece here unthreaded, and there was actually an oil cooler assembly sandwiched in between the block and then this piece here. So what I'm thinking I'm going to have to do is use this older 3400 style oil adapter housing and then put an external oil filter adapter on this and screw that on there, and then I can run a remote oil filter adapter on this setup to use a 3900. So otherwise, you might be able to get away with using one of these, but it might not clear the engine cradle cross brace. There's a cross brace possibly in the way where you can't use an oil filter. So, alright, let's take a look at the oil pan real quick. I never got around to showing the differences in the lx9 oil pan and the LZ oil pan. Okay, so what we have here is we have the LZ oil pan on the top and we got the lx9 oil pan on the bottom. Of course, this is the oil return bung that I used on my turbo setup. The pans are pretty much the same, I mean, you might have a boss or two that are slightly different, but the big difference here is that on the LZ oil pan, you have this little concave portion here, and this is actually to clear the oil filter on the LZ engine. So on the block, the filter actually angles towards the oil pan, whereas on the LX or the previous gens, the oil filter just came off the blocks, at an angle. So with the LZs, they actually angled down in this direction. So GM had to make that little notch in the oil pan to clear. There you can kind of see it on the inside right here, to clear the oil filter, give it a little gap there. So of course in the LX you don't see that. So other than that, the oil pans are the same. On the LZ, this appears to be an oil level sensor. So of course if your oil level gets too low, that'll let you know. But other than that, these oil pans are the same. They appear to use the exact same gasket on the this here. So other than that, I think they're the same. These are probably actually swappable. If you don't plan on using this oil filter adapter, the factory oil filter adapter, if you don't plan on using this, you can probably get away with using an LX9 oil pan if you really wanted to. They're interchangeable other than that. So, alright guys, that was it for this video. I didn't get around to showing these little small changes on the last video between the differences in the engine, so I just wanted to show that to you. So, one of the big hurdles, of course, is going to be the actual oil filter housing setups. So, if you plan on running a LZ engine in a car that came with an LX, you're probably going to need to figure something out with the oil filter setup. So, all right, guys, stay tuned for more videos. Thank you.